Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to be continuing with the Maimer from the Rebbe in Parshas VaYeitzeh Tov Shin Ayin Gimel from 5773, which we started last night, with the introductions necessary to understand what the Rebbe is trying to lead us through, up to and including the culmination of this Torah, which is the sixth story of Rabbi Nachman Sipor Maisios, the Maisim Melech Anav, a tale of a humble king. So last night we introduced some concepts of the world of Akudim. We associated Yitzchak Avinu with the world of Akudim, and now we are going to go weiter into the Maimer. And this is going to be on Daf Yud Aleph, and again, we're going to stop for all of the necessary Hakdamos. So the pasuk in this week's parsha, or this past week's parsha, says, "VaYeitzeh Yaakov mi Be'er Shava, VaYelech Harana." That Yaakov Avinu leaves Be'er Shava and he descends down into Harana. Now, the Zohar HaKadosh describes Be'er Sheva as a place of calmness, a place associated with Bina, a place where things are oriented in the right way. And Harana is Haron Af, it's anger, it's frustration, it's the despair, the nighttime experience where one has lost themselves. And what the Zohar HaKadosh refers to it as is the world of Shvira. So what we're seeing really here is the descent of Yaakov Avinu away from his father Yitzchak, who represents the world of Akudim, where everything was unified in one singular vessel without any distinction between lights and the vessels, where everything was clarified in this unified way, and descending down into the worlds of Nikudim, which are associated with Yaakov Avinu, which is the birthplace of the Shviras HaKelim. So when the Pasuk says that Yaakov left Be'er Shava, it represents him leaving that space of the world of Akudim, that calmness of Yitzchak Avinu, and descending down into the chaos of Haran Af, of anger, of destruction. Zak the Rebbe. Dihine kolzman sheyakov haya im Yitzchak aviv lo haya inyan shel Haran Af. As long as Yaakov Avinu found himself in the space of Yitzchak Avinu, which is the space of Olam HaAkudim, where the singular vessel is capable of holding all of those 10 lights, there was no anger, there was no shvira. Ki haya hamadrega shel ikudim shasham lo haya shvira. Because Yaakov Avinu is functioning at the level of Yitzchak's space, which is the level of Akudim, which is devoid of any shvira, devoid of any shattering. But when he descended away from the place of Akudim, which are the singular vessel that contains all 10 lights in an impossible level of unity, and it descends into the world of Nikudim, which is the birthplace of 10 separate vessels with 10 separate lights, and the frustration of each vessel wanting all the lights, which is Goyrem, the Shvira, as hitchil inyan charon af shehu soid shviras hakelim. At that point, Yaakov Avinu entered into the possible space of anger and frustration and disorientation, which is associated with what? With the shvira. Kamoisha kasav b'Zohar HaKadosh, like the Zohar HaKadosh says in Parshas VaYeitzeh, she vayelech charana, that when the pasuk says that Yaakov Avinu went down to Haran, hu melashon charon af, it means that he was descending down into that place of distortion, that birthplace of anger, which comes primarily from the disunity between lights and vessels, where each vessel wants a different light. That was not present in the world of Akudim, because as we said, everything found its presence in one singular plea. Ve'amnan, Ksiv v'yikach avnei hamakom v'yasem miroshosav v'yashkev b'makom hahu. Like we said, Akudim, Nekudim, and Berudim emerge from the Oznayim, the Choitim, and the Peh of Adam Kadmon, and we said that the Oiros of the Peh of Adam Kadmon, which is the Oiros of Nekudim, of Akudim, is the birthplace of the possibility of a vessel, which is why it's associated with language, it's associated with the mouth, and which is why the Osios, the Chaf-Beis Osi of the Torah, in their primordial form prior to manifestation and coagulation as actual linguistic markers, they represent, as the Balatani teaches us, signs that descend from above to below, that they draw down the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the Zohar HaKadosh, the Osios are referred to as Susei Eish, as horses of fire that serve as the Merkava to transfer the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu from above down below to where we can receive it. The origination, the birthplace of those Chaf-Beis Osios in their primordial form, where they don't yet exist as any engravings or anything like that, is in the space of Akudim. And the remez that we said to that is that the Chaf Beis Osios, the 22 letters, plus the Shem Sag, which is the Shem Havaya associated with the world of Akudim, which is Yud, Vav Dalid, Hey Yud, Vav Aleph Vav, Hey Yud, which is the gematria of 63. 63 plus 22 equals 85, which is the gematria of Peh. So we saw that associated with the world of Akudim, which is that place of impossible unity of a singular vessel refined to such a degree that it can contain all births of differentiation in the form of the 10 different spheros, that is also the origination point of the potential of the letters. So on the one hand, we see that Yaakov Avinu leaves the house of Yitzchak. He descends away from the world of Akudim, and he finds himself in a place of Haron Af. He finds himself in a place of anger, of frustration, of shvira, of disorientation. Yet, nevertheless, what we find, what does Yaakov Avinu do? What does Yaakov Avinu do when he finds himself caught up in that possible space of shvira? He attaches himself to this place of Vayikach me'avne hamakom v'yasem me'roishoisav v'yashkev b'makom hahu. He took from the stones of that place and he placed them beneath his head, and he went to sleep in that place. Now, avanim, the Sefer Yetzirah tells us, are the osios. Osios are the stones which build the batim, which are words. So already we see a remiss to the fact that what Yaakov Avinu was osek in this place of trying to find comfort in the depth of nighttime, in that place of Rishus, in that place of Haron Af, Yaakov Avinu decided to connect himself to the Avnei HaMakom, to the letters of the Makom, to the letters of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol, and he placed them by his head or in his head, V'yashkev b'makom hahu. The pasuk says, and he slept there. V'yashkev, Vav Yud Shin Chaf Beis, which, as the tzaddikim point out, V'yashkev can also be read as V'yesh Chaf Beis, and there are 22 letters, which means to say the V'yashkev, the slumber of Yaakov Avinu, was a re-entrance, a reattachment to the 22 letters. And the sod of Vayashkev, the sod of going to sleep, is the secret of the osios of V'yesh Chaf Beis. There are 22 letters. Why? Because Kinis Kasher leBechinas Olam HaAkudim Shu Shayrashay leBechinas Yitzchak Avinu. What was Yaakov Avinu doing when he descended into the world of Shvira, when he descended into the world of Nikudim, when he went from the world of Akudim, of clarity and peace between oppositional traits associated with his father Yitzchak, and descends down into a place of shvira and difficulty? Naturally, he reattaches himself back to that place from which he came, where he draws the chizik from Yitzchak Avinu. He attaches himself to those 22 letters, which, as we said in the name of the Arizal, are found already b'sharasham, in the mouth of Adam Kanmon, as they emerge in the world of Akudim. And in that place, in the world of Yitzchak Avinu, in the world of the Akudim, Yaakov Avinu attaches himself to the secret of the 22 letters. He attaches himself to that possible space where all differentiation is still unified in its root, to the extent that difference is simply a vessel through which unity can be expressed in different ways, rather than being something that is disintegrative in relationship to the unity. Because, like we said, the root source of all of those 22 letters, Hu Haped Akudim, is the mouth of Adam Kadmon, from which Akudim emerges. Shenesgalu Sham HaChaf Beis Osios K'moshe Kasav HaArizal Be'etz Chaim, because that's the origination point, or the beginning of the expression of the letters, as the Arizal describes in the secret of Peh, which is the gematria of 85, which is the gematria of Sag, which is the Shem Havaya of Yud Vav Dalid, Hey Yud Vav Aleph Vav Hey Yud, in addition to the 22 letters, which becomes the gematria of Peh. So Yaakov Avinu finds himself descending away from that place of Akudim, descending away from that place, the world of Yitzchak Avinu, like we saw in the name of the Ramah Mipano, brought down in the Hagosa B'Urim on Eitz Chaim from Rav Menachem Mendel Halpern, that Olam HaAkudim corresponds to Yitzchak Avinu, Nekudim and Brudim, Shvira and Tikkun represents Yaakov. So in Yaakov's descent away from the clarity of his father Yitzchak, the only way to survive in the darkness of night, in the burgeoning darkness that he was encountering, and all of the shvira that he was encountering, was to attach himself towards what? To the world of Yitzchak Avinu. Now the Rebbe is going to start with a discussion of a second inyan, which is going to be a question of emuna and bitachon. And here, in my humble opinion, is some of the sweetest Torah, some of the most fundamentally practical Torah that we can encounter, as it's coming from the mouth of the tzaddik by Rav the Rav in Parshas VaYeitzeh Tov Shin Ayin Gimel. V'hinei harambam hakadosh, the Ramban, writes as follows: when it comes to the inyan of emuna and bitachon, of faith and trust, emuna and bitachon, shoel ma hahevdel bein emuna lebitachon. What is the distinction between emuna and bitachon? And again, we're going to see what relationship this has to the question of Yaakov Avinu's descent away from the world of Yitzchak, which is the world of Akudim, into a world of Shvira. V'harei yodea shehakol hu HaKadosh Baruch Hu uman noisef be'inyan habitachon yoter ala emuna. We know that everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu either way, whether it's with emuna or bitachon. So what additional value is there in the element of bitachon above and beyond what emuna offers? The Tiritz Ramban, and the Ramban answers, the emuna hu lilmod ha'inyanim shaloi b'shas nisayon, that the concept of emuna, the theological tenets that we hold true in our minds, that is what takes place. That's what we study and what we contemplate when it's not a time of difficulty, when we're not being called upon to engage the psychological and therapeutic value of these experiences. Bitachon, on the other level, what's bitachon? Hu la'amud bazeh b'shas nisayon. Bitachon is the ability to stand upon this truth in the moment when things get difficult. Emuna is the tree where I know things to be true prior to the need to apply them to a real life experience. Bitachon is the branch, in the language of the Ramban, which is my ability to apply them in a real life experience. Kloimar, meaning to say, lachyois im emuna bepoyel b'sha'a sheba lefnei nisayon. To the point that the Ramban, in accordance with the Rebbe's understanding, is that in truth, emuna and bitachon are not necessarily two separate inyanim, but emuna is the experience of it prior to its manifestation, prior to the need to actually apply it, and bitachon is to live with emuna in an actualized way in the moment that a person experiences the nisayon in which their emuna and bitachon will naturally struggle. And Moreno Harav Tzvi, the Mahartzu Mezidichav, Tzvi Hirsch Mezidichav, in his biur on the Zohar Kadosh in Ateres Tzvi, he and other tzaddikim as well, the Rebbe goes into this discussion as to its relationship with the Chazon Ish Shita of Emuna and the Chavos HaLevavos Shita in Emuna, something that we discuss at length in the biur on Maaseh Bitachon, based on the Rebbe's teachings on Bitachon, which come from this place as well. So the Mahartza Mezidichav v'chein Rishar Svarim HaKadoshim meyavshim ba'ofen acher. They understand the chakira, the distinction between Emuna, faith, and Bitachon, trust, in a different way. The Ramban says emuna is learning about the ideas prior to any need to actualize them in the real time. Bitachon is the application of those ideas in real time. But the other shitos say as follows: emuna hu sheyodea shehakol bidei shamayim v'hakol yeh b'vadei l'tova. Emuna is the deep-seated knowledge that everything stands in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that everything is certainly going to be for the good, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Rak HaTov, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Tov HaMeitiv and Choy HaTov L'Heitiv. We understand that the source of everything is Choy HaTov L'Heitiv. That's Emuna. Bitachon hu sheyesh emuna kol kach chazaka ba'ofen shekvar achshav yargish eich hakol hu tova merov madregas habitachon. Zok the Rebbe in the name of the tzaddikim, emuna is the knowledge that everything is for the best. Emuna is the knowledge that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the best, who is running the world in the best way by offering the best that we can receive. Bitachon is the depth of emuna to such a degree that we already feel that everything is the tova as a result of the intense expression of bitachon, even after that goodness has been revealed in any practical way. In spite of the fact that it has not yet been revealed in front of my eyes how there can be good that comes out of this situation, mikol makom merov emuna v'bitachon, as a result of the intense investiture into the depths of emuna and bitachon, harehu kvar margish achshav echa kol hu l'tova. The koyach of bitachon is to taste the geula prior to its arrival. Emuna is the belief that the redemption will arrive in this moment. Bitachon is such a deep experience of emuna that I feel as if that redemption has already arrived, even though it hasn't arrived yet. Now, be'emes, I have written on the side over here from I don't know when, that it's hard to really, in my eyes, determine what the real difference is between the Ramban's chakira between Emunah and Bitachon and the Tzaddikim's chakira between Emunah and Bitachon, because what the Ramban writes is that Emunah is the deep understanding of it prior to the need to actualize it in real time. Bitachon is the application in real time. And what Mahartza, Mezidichav, and the other Tzaddikim are saying is that Emunah is the knowledge, the pre-knowledge that things will be good, and bitachon is the deep investiture of that awareness. In spite of the fact that evidence does not support it whatsoever, it's a willingness to descend deeply into the calmness of that space in my mind to feel as if the redemption has already arrived, as if this moment has already been fixed. Umekayim kvar, and as a result of the depth of bitachon, one has already accomplished in this moment the bechina of v'hisanig al Hashem v'yitein lecha mishalois libecha. That the koyach of bitachon is that a person already finds pleasure al Hashem. They're already engaged in the deep pleasure of the knowledge that everything is good, in spite of the fact that things are not good yet. And as a result of that, v'yitein lecha mishalos libecha. As a result of your bitachon itself, that is what is going to draw down the questions of your heart, the answers to the questions of your heart. V'zehu tchilas hakasav, and this is what the pasuk in Tehillim Lamed Zayin says as follows: Batach b'Hashem va'aseh tov. Trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and do good. Shachen aretz v'ra'a emunah. That once a person has the deepest investment into bitachon itself, the azmas kayim bo kvar, and at that point, through the bitachon, which is the result of having a deep-seated faith in emunah, kvar achshav, already in this moment, v'hisanig al Hashem v'yitein l'chom mishalos libecha. Already in this moment, even prior to the redemption, even prior to the fixing, I have the capacity to live as if I feel that the fixing has already taken place. Thus is the koyach of bitachon, the ability to see in this present moment with certainty that things are going to be good, that it's as if the future has already arrived. Spoken differently, and we explain this at length in Ma'aseh Bitachon, in Shlekti Yitzchak on Ma'aseh Bitachon, in accordance with the Mikubalim, the Shemen Sasson, that there's a stira as to whether bitachon is in Chachma or Bina. As whether it's a mayach of chachma, something that is rooted in a transcendental awareness of the Rabbanu Shalom, or whether bitachon is an inyan of bina, which is something that is rooted in the interiority of the experience of the self. What the Mikubalim point out, based on Drush Sar HaTzitzis, where there seems to be a stira about where bitachon is rooted, the Shemen Sasson says that be'emes bitachon is the koyach of chachma within bina, which means that if chachma is the ability to see everything as it is in its purest form, and bina is the fact that I don't quite live there yet, chachma within bina is the ability to see everything in its proper form prior to it actually being fixed. And that's what the Rebbe seems to be describing here, that the difference between Amunah and Bitachon is that Bitachon is such a deep investment in the space of calmness and comfort that everything is fixed in this moment in spite of the fact that everything is still broken in this moment. That is the koyach of Bitachon. The ha'inyan hu de badregas emunah, that in the level of emunah, which is prior to the experience of actually feeling it in a deep-seated way, even though a person has the deep-seated belief system that everything is going to be good, in this moment, I don't feel it, I don't experience it, I can't apply this to my real life emotional experience. The only sense that I have is some general makif, some surrounding idea that doesn't manifest itself in any practical way, right? A makif, as opposed to a pnimi, is something that exceeds the mind's capacity. The makifin are ideas that circle our minds in a potential form of an idea that I can call upon in some future-oriented state, but it's not something I gain access to in this present moment. A pnimi, on the other hand, is an embodied experience that I feel in this moment in a real emotional intelligence type of way. That on the level of Amunah, I can feel everything is good, but it's still only by way of some surrounding sense. Masha'in came b'madregas bitachon, but when it comes to bitachon, machmas oitzem ha'amunah, as a result of the intensification and the depth of my emunah, hare margish kvar ata bebechinas pnimi es toivas Hashem yisparach b'chol anyonim. I already feel right here, right now, in an embodied way, the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all various aspects and in all of the matzavim. U'kamoy shekasav Rashi, and here the Rebbe is going to orient this towards Shir Hashirim, based on Rashi and based on a comment from the Tzur Hamor, that the secret of bitachon is mamish the secret of Shir Hashirim. Why? What's happening in Shir Hashirim? What's happening in this Kodesh HaKadoshim that Rabbi Akiva is able to be Megala? That the Rabbi Akiva is able to be Megala, that it is the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So Rashi says, Kamashakasav Rashi HaKadosh al Shlomo HaMelech. In Rashi's first Perush on Shir Hashirim, Rashi describes that Shir Hashirim is the aspect that Shlomo HaMelech shahoyrid inyan hayichud af bisman hagolus. That Shlomo HaMelech was speaking from a time of Golus, with a love sickness and a yearning for redemption, But that love sickness and desire for redemption within exile is in truth an actual experience of the redemption within exile itself. Similar to the Darga of Bitachon, which is the Hargasha of the Bitachon, which is so strong that even prior to the fixing, I experience it being fixed. Like the Tzror Hamor brings in Parshas Tazria Yud Beis Beis, Shu Kemashal Ha'isha Hayoledes, that the best example for this is an example of a woman in the process of birthing, of giving birth. Sha'af be'ez hakoishi, that even in the moment of difficulty, of suffering, of tza'aka machmas tsar haleda, and the scream and the cry that emerges, which the Zohar Kadosh says is a cry that echoes and vibrates throughout reality, that cry that emerges out of the pain of birth, harehi kvar margisha b'yeshua shel havlad. Already the woman is already in a state of moichin, already in a state of redemptive awareness of v'tislach l'yom acharon, in spite of the fact that she's still finding herself in a state of pain. V'nasa az yoiser yichud lebala, and in that moment there's a secret yichud that takes place, specifically in a place of richuk, because as the Meforshim say, the woman standing next to her husband, she knows her husband is the one who caused all of this pain. But ultimately, there's a deep yichud that takes place in the awareness of the redemption that is uncovered prior to its own arrival in the depths of the difficulty that exists before it. Who beside hayichud hasoidi be'es haleda, and this yichud of bitachon, this yichud of shir hashir, and this ability to see the goodness in our lives prior to its arrival is what the Arizal describes as the secret unity, the secret yichud that arrives b'shas haleda, the secret zivug, the secret unification that takes place specifically at the time of birth, at the time of pain. Now, this secret that the Rebbe is referring to over here, this secret zivug, the Zivug Hasodi, is described by Arichas and the Arizal by the drush of Shvi Shal Pesach. Now, the drush of Shvi Shal Pesach is the secret of how Klal Yisrael were nothing. Klal Yisrael were tlas klilim betlas. They were bent over like an infantile, uncreated thing. They had no mochen. They had just left Mitzrayim. They carried their avodah zara out. They had nothing left to say. At this point, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, Ma titzak alai, why are you yelling to me? This is something that is totally in a place far beyond any bechira. This is a place that is totally in atika. In this moment where you feel so small, the Arizal brings a Zohar Kadosh, how there's a snake that comes along and bites the rechem, it bites the womb of a sheep, of a lamb, and somehow, some way, there's a zivug soidi, there's a secret, difficult birthing that takes place, not in spite of the difficulty, not after the difficulty, but from within the difficulty itself. This secret zivug of Shvi Shal Pesach, which the Arizal did not want to reveal to Rav Chaim Vital. Rav Chaim Vital pushed and pushed and pushed for the Arizal to be megalo this teaching, and as the Emek HaMelech brings down, the Arizal says one of the reasons that he was nifter prior to the time that he was supposed to live until was as a result of revealing this teaching too early. This secret of the zivug that can take place specifically in a time of Leda, the joy that I can feel prior to the redemption from the pain, the joy within the pain itself, with the awareness of bitachon that even now, prior to the feeling that everything is good, I can know that everything is good. V'zehu, and this is the secret of sha'af begolus be'ez chavle Leda shem chavle Mashiach, the secret of even in the time of the birth pangs, which are the birth pangs of redemption, af sha'adayin yesh ke'evim b'tzaros, even though there's still an immense amount of pain and suffering, nevertheless, kvar efshar l'smoyach, a person can already uncover the ground of joy and simcha, b'Yeshua, with the redemption that has not yet arrived, u'lehiskasher b'yeser seisem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and in that place to not only find the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in spite of the difficulty, but to utilize the difficulty to become the engine that drives an even deeper connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the secret besoid yichud hasoidi sheb'shas leda, that secret unity of Shvi Shal Pesach, where the Jewish people cry out from a place of katnus shebekatnus, the lowest imaginable place, and we uncover the deepest light. Shekvar margishim hayeshua, we're already feeling that simcha, we're already feeling that redemption, u'miskarvim u'mistavkim yoytze b'Hashem Yisparach, and at that point we're attaching ourselves in an even deeper way to the Rebbeinu Shalom. This is the secret of bitachon, the secret of being margish the Yeshua prior to its arrival, the secret of having the amunah so deeply entrenched within us that we can laugh during the difficulty itself, because we know in its deepest part of ourselves that everything is good. V'zeh ha'avodah shel hatzadik shu Yaakov Avinu. This was the avodah of the tzaddik, which was Yaakov Avinu. Shenisrachik me Yitzchak Avinu v'yelech harana. He went away from the place of Olam HaAkudim. He went away from the light of Yitzchak Avinu and down into a place of Haran. He left the place of pure laughter and he descended into a place of the potential towards disorientation and disintegration. Shehu yatzim b'chinas Olam HaAkudim shu b'chinas Yitzchak. He left that place of Olam HaAkudim, that unified kli that contains everything within it, and descends down into the world of Nikudim, which is the birthplace of disintegration and the birth of Shvira. Asher shamhu b'chinas Harana, that's the place of anger. Shehu sod hashvira. But what was the Eitzah? What was Yaakov Avinu teaching us? What's the only way to find light in a place like that? Acha Eitzah lezehu yeshchaf beis osios, v'yishkav b'makom ahu, v'yikach me'avnei hamakom, v'yishkav b'makom ahu. He collected the 22 letters. Why? In the secret of the Soid v'yishkav b'makom ahu, which are the 22 letters of the Torah, which are the 22 letters that are rooted in the peh of Akudim, which are the 22 letters, the origination of limitation prior to them being any limiting factors that are rooted in Yitzchak Avinu, the true source of laughter. And in that moment, shetzarich lesamich es atzmo be'es tzara v'katnus im chaf beis osios haTorah hakadosha k'ma shekasim v'Baal Shem Tov hakadosh. Because the only thing to do when a person finds themselves in those places of katnus is to repeat and uncover the chaf beis osios of the Torah, the most basic building blocks. This is the secret of the Baal Shem Tov and the story that we say over on Shvi Shal Pesach of the Baal Shem Tov, descending down into that place of katnus shebekatnus, trying to get to Eretz Yisrael, forgetting everything, not remembering anything, and only slowly but surely remembering Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, v'chule, v'chule. That in this point, in a place of Charon Af, the only thing that a tzaddik can do is be makasher to the world of Akudim, which they came from. And here we're going to go just one more paragraph, Bezras Hashem. So v'hine shoresh chaf beis osios. Where do these 22 letters come from? We said the shoresh of these chaf beis osios are in the mouth of Akudim. Shesham matchil havayos hakelim beside sag v'kab sha'oile b'gematria peknal. And like we said, what Yaakov Avinu was doing here was attaching himself to the world of Akudim, which was the sag of Adam Kadmon, which is already the potentiation and the birthplace of limitation prior to it being any form of real limitation, where the letters were not yet written, but rather existing in potentia. And those 22 letters plus the Shem Havaya, the Sag, which is the Yud Vav Dalet, Hey Yud, Vav Aleph Vav, Hey Yud, in Gematria lead to Peh, which is 85. That's what Yaakov Avinu was being makasher himself to. But here we're going to stop now. We're going to stop now because what we're going to discuss tomorrow night is what the Rebbe is going to introduce us to, and we touched upon this last night, is that in the writings of Rav Chaim Vital, the highest place of the letters is in the mouth of Akudim. That's the birthplace of the Chaf Beis Osios. But in the writings of Mahari Sarug, in the writings of the Olam HaMalbush, the root source of those Osios are in a much higher place than even Adam Kadmon, in the place of Sha'ashuin. And what we're going to discuss tomorrow, Mirz Hashem, we're going to give a hakdama to a very basic hakdama to the Olamis HaMalbush, the Kabbalah of Mahari Sarug, which was developed and utilized by the Hasidim, V'Anshe Maisa, by the Gra, by the Rashash, by the Ramchal, by everybody, as the Rebbe and his Talmidim have pointed out in numerous places, as Rav Shmuel expresses explicitly through the 100 pages of his Maimer, Hashem Melech Goes Lavesh in the Sefer Yeruchim Shemesh, proving that the Rashash and his Talmidim as well utilized Olam HaMalbush. And we're going to see how, in truth, not only was Yaakov Avinu reaching back to the place of Akudim, which is the source of Yitzchak Avinu, but by attaching himself to those letters, he was rooting himself back to the primordial Torah, the letters, those Chaf Beis Osios of the Olam HaMalbush, which we're going to see are the very same inyan of Bitachon. Because the world of the Malbush, as we're going to see and uncover some of the deep secrets of the Olam HaMalbush, which speaks so deeply to the soul, is that everything there is both real and not real. Everything there is manifesting and erasing at the same point. It's presence and absence at once. It's something being present but not yet being present. Very similar to the koyach of bitachon, of needing to uncover something that is not yet present, but willing to live my life in accordance with that awareness that it's going to arrive, thereby feeling as if it has already arrived and tasting the future in the present right now, be'ezrus Hashem.